Welcome to the Storytelling That Sticks for Business and Life podcast. I'm your keynote, TED Talk and story coach, Doug Stevenson. In this podcast series, I'm going to share with you some simple and practical storytelling techniques and hacks that will make you stand out from the competition so that you can get paid to speak, or to give a TED Talk that goes viral, or to simply tell your story in a way that makes a difference in the world. My job as your virtual keynote and story coach is to help you design and deliver stories and speeches that get people to do what you want them to do, or to consider a new perspective. If you're serious about using storytelling to advance your career, to get paid to speak, or simply to get your message across in a more engaging and compelling manner, this podcast is for you. All right, well, let's get started. Have you ever done everything right to prepare for a speech or presentation, and then in the minutes before you're scheduled to begin, something happens that throws you off? Your PowerPoint doesn't work, or the room setup is terrible, or someone says or does something that throws you for a loop. And if that hasn't happened to you yet, get ready. All right, get ready for it, because it's going to happen at some point. All of those things that I mentioned have happened to me. But over time, I've learned how to prepare for anything so that nothing can throw me off balance. Now, I talk a lot about how to choose and craft your story and how to organize your content, how to prepare your keynote or your speech or presentation. But one of the most valuable things that I learned over the years has nothing to do with my stories or content. It's what you need to do before you speak, before you say your first sentence, how you get ready to speak or make a presentation. So in this episode, I want to talk about how you prepare mentally, physically, and emotionally to begin your presentation from your first sentence with a confident and grounded presence. If you spend all of your time preparing your speech, working on your slides and stories and content, but then right before you speak, you get nervous. Do you ever get nervous? Or something happens that throws you off? Your entire speech, your entire presentation can go off the rails in a heartbeat. Every speaker I know has had it happen. It has happened to me, and I don't want it to ever happen to you. So this episode is about what you do before you speak, in the hours and minutes before you speak, or even taking into account the night before you speak. How do you shut out all the noise and distractions that can mess you up so that you can do what you need to do to start off on the right foot, rather than putting your foot in the mouth and stumbling out of the gate? Now, I know, as a professional speaker and trainer for 25 years, flying into a city the day before a gig, dealing with airlines and airports, all the hassles of business travel with delayed flights and finding your Uber driver, and don't even get me started about jet lag if it's an overseas speaking engagement, and then sleeping in strange hotel rooms, no matter how nice or crummy. And then you got to wake up early, right? You got to wake up early, get yourself in gear, get ready, and then going down to the conference room or ballroom or meeting room, whatever, doing sound checks and stuff. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things that can happen to distract you and mess with your energy and state of mind before you speak. And if you don't have a process, a ritual, I call it a ritual, or a set of protocols that you can count on to get you into the right place, all of your preparation can go out the window before you say your first sentence. For instance, this happened to me. I had a keynote in Vienna, Austria, a couple of years ago, a 1-hour keynote. And I flew in 2 days before because I suffer from extreme jet lag. And I did my best to be rested and ready to go. But when it was time to give my speech, I was still only about 60%, maybe 70% recovered from jet lag. Now, maybe they didn't notice, maybe the audience didn't notice, but I did. And it was my discipline and technique, as well as my preparation rituals, that saved me. And you know what? From the feedback that I received afterwards, my speech was a hit. Luckily for me, my speech was still a hit because I'm a pro. Now, another time, and this is very different, I still remember this and it cracks me up. I was delivering my positive power change keynote at the Cornhusker Hotel in Lincoln, Nebraska. The Nebraska football team is called the Cornhuskers. So there I am, Lincoln, Nebraska, the Cornhusker Hotel, about 150 people in the audience. And the man who introduced me, I don't remember who he was, a VP or something, before he read my introduction, he said something to the audience to the effect of this. Okay, so imagine this. You're sitting in the audience, your VP gets up and he says this. Okay, everybody, thanks for being here. Now, you know that a lot has been going on behind the scenes in our organization. And so I just want to level with all of you because you deserve to know the truth. And the truth is, next year at this meeting, our annual meeting, 25% of you will be gone. That's just how it is. We have to make some cuts, some drastic cuts. And so to help you deal with these changes, we brought in Doug Stevenson. And then he read my introduction. Now, what do you think? What do you think? Would that throw you off if you were a speaker? If you followed that? And this guy just dropped a bomb on the entire audience? Well, for the first 10 minutes of my speech, I could feel the shock and disbelief in the room. It was dead silence. But once again, my preparation made all the difference. I knew how to start without letting that distract me and throw me off. Now, I've never been much of an athlete, but I've always been a runner. I ran track in high school, and as an adult, starting in my 50s, I started running 5Ks and 10Ks and half marathons. I mean, I did that. It was pretty cool. And just to put this in perspective, just so you know, when the race is over and they display the results, because they always do that after a race, I am consistently in the last 10% of finishers. I mean, I suck. I'm really slow. If there are 25 men in my age group, I'll be number 24. And you know what? So what? I don't care. I show up and I run and I have a good time. But my point here is this: right before the race, people are stretching and hydrating and getting ready. I was in Orlando, Florida for a speaking engagement, and I saw that there was a 5K race nearby the day after I spoke and before I had to go to the airport. It was called the Get Your Rear in Gear 5K. What a fun title. And it was only about a half mile from my hotel. So instead of driving my rental car the half mile to the starting line, I decided to run to the starting line as a warm-up, a physical warm-up. And as a result, I ran my fastest 5K in a long time. And I learned something about warming up and getting ready. That's when I understood why so many of the fastest runners run a couple of miles before a race to warm up their muscles and get their lungs pumping. It's not how fast you run the race. It's how smart you are before the race that makes the difference. Speech prep is a lot like prepping for a race or an athletic competition. It's got to include a physical aspect. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Okay. So I had a coaching client the other day, and after we were finished working on his story, I asked him, well, how many speeches have you done? And he said he'd only done a couple of speeches, but he wanted to do more. He wanted to get paid to speak and make speaking a career. And we got into a conversation about how his speeches had gone. And he said, well, you know what? They're okay, but they're not great. And I think he said they were hit and miss, not consistent. So we got into a conversation about his speaking presence, how he carried himself on stage when he spoke, and whether his offstage personality came through, his humor and his playfulness and his spontaneity. Because in coaching him and working with him and in talking to him, when he wasn't giving a presentation, I could see that this guy was lively. He had a great personality. And here was his answer. He said, you know, Doug, just before I begin to speak, I get really serious. And I asked him why, and he says, well, he felt the weight of the expectation that he had to come across as a serious person, which is exactly what got in my way in the early days of my speaking career, trying to be a serious person, wanting to be taken seriously. which is this weird thing, right? It's as if all of a sudden we can become more serious in 2 minutes before we speak, whatever that means. It's not like you and I don't take our content seriously or take our stories seriously. We think about our content, we're taking it seriously. But what is this thing about, well, I have to be serious? Here's the thing, and I've said this before. You need to be the same person in front of an audience of 10 or 500 people in a boardroom or ballroom or meeting room than you are all day long when you're not speaking in front of an audience. So let's say that you are one part smart and serious. Okay, one part of you is smart and serious. Another part of you is funny. And you also have a part of you that's loving and compassionate. And then there are a couple of parts of you that are just amazing, hilarious, incredible, amazing, powerful. Well, then you need to find a way. This is what I want you to get. You need to find a way to bring all of your parts together, all of those aspects of your personality into the person that gives a speech. And that requires that you stop trying to shrink yourself into some version of yourself that you think will get you by, some serious person, and start figuring out how to integrate all of your parts into the amazing and engaging speaker that the audience that you stand in front of will love and learn from. And that starts, it all begins with how you prepare yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally, and yes, often spiritually, before you speak. So I asked him if he played any sports or acted in a play or sang in a band. And he told me that he was a boxer and Taekwondo fighter. And so I asked him, well, what do you do to prepare for a fight? Do you warm up? Do you shadow box? And he told me all about the things he did to get ready to step into the rings. And it was a lot. It was a lot of physical stuff. And it started well before the start of the fight. So we talked about how he needed to bring the same mentality, the same psychology, the same physicality to the time right before he speaks. Because to me, and I know you can relate to this, you have to be physically right to give a great speech or tell an amazing story. Speaking is a physical act. At least if you have any hopes of being powerful and amazing, you need to physically be powerful and amazing. So here are some tips. I'm going to give you some tips on how to get ready to speak. So you might want to take some notes. Think of these as the elements of your preparation ritual, some protocols. And as you listen to these ideas and techniques and protocols, add some of your own steps that make you feel great and get you into the right frame of mind and set you up for success. All right, so number one, it has to do with what you eat and drink before you speak. All of my first speeches, and maybe you're experiencing this, all of my first speeches were at breakfast and luncheon meetings for free, where people would eat breakfast or lunch, and then I'd get up and speak for 20 minutes. And since I always showed up hungry, I'd eat breakfast or lunch before I spoke. And you know what happened? You know what happened? While I was speaking, I'd burp. Not big, loud burps that everyone could hear, but small indigestion burps. And they were just like annoying. And if I drank too much coffee, it would affect my brain and I'd end up speaking too fast or having to pee before I finished speaking. So protocol number one, don't eat a full meal for at least 90 minutes before you speak. Give your meal, the meal that you eat 90 minutes before or whatever, time to digest. And also be very, very careful about your caffeine intake. It can make you crazy. Oh my gosh, I had this storytelling training in Amsterdam for Red Bull. You know Red Bull, right? And one of the things I do in my training is I have people get up and tell a story, and then I coach them. Well, so this one guy gets up, and he must have had 3 or 4 or 5 Red Bulls that day. And he spoke 90 miles an hour and made absolutely no sense. It was a disaster. He just embarrassed himself. So protocol number one is watch what you eat and drink. And oh yeah, get a good night's sleep. Protocol number two, do something physical to increase your heart rate and breathing before you speak. Now, there is a technical brain science reason for this. When you exercise, your heart rate increases. Your lungs expand with oxygen and your brain starts firing on all cylinders. The synaptic activity in your brain starts to go crazy. Well, to test this idea, I want you to just recall the last time you went for a run or worked out at the gym and how all of a sudden, after about 5 or 10 minutes of working out, you start having all these great ideas. All of these revelations start coming to you. You start coming up with creative solutions to things that have been troubling you. And you know why? You know why? It's because of all the oxygen flowing to your brain, stimulating synaptic activity, the electrical impulses that fire in your brain. And all of a sudden, like magic, but it's not magic, the different lobes, the different parts of your brain that have different functions, the logical brain, the emotional brain, the decision-making brain, they all start talking to each other. And voila, you're a genius. And so if you do something physical, maybe the morning of your speech or in the parking lot for 5 minutes, whatever, some jumping jacks or jogging in place, not right before you speak because you don't want to work up a sweat, but you can do 2 or 3 minutes of something. And it will get all of this synaptic activity going. It'll wake up your brain so your brain will be primed and ready for your speech. So protocol number 2, do something physical to elevate your heart rate and get your brain going. All right, you ready? Protocol number 3, create a mantra or prayer or phrase that you can say to yourself that will get you into a place of self-confidence and poise. Now, it can be a lyric from a song that resonates with you, or a verse from scripture, if that brings you peace, or some positive self-talk that reminds you what your intention is. It can be anything that you repeat over and over and over, like the chorus of a song that removes any self-doubt or fear and moves you into a place of service to the people that you're going to be speaking to, that allows you to feel equal to and one with your audience. Now, I probably told you this story before. I can't remember. I've done so many episodes. But one thing that helped me, and it really was a transformation when it happened, it was a revelation, was that I started saying to myself in the 5 minutes before I was introduced, I'd look at the people sitting in the audience and I'd say, "This is us. We are the same." And then I would improvise all of these things that made us the same. So I'd say to myself, well, I have a job. Well, they have a job. I'm married. Many of them are married. I'm a son. Well, they're all sons and daughters of somebody. And I would just keep repeating, this is us. We are all the same. And it helped me to feel less apart, less separate, because I always felt like an outsider. And I had to find a way to close the space between us. And they couldn't do that. I had to do that for myself. And I know that might sound weird, but you know what? Weird works. Weird works. So this protocol has to do with your psychology, how you shift your perspective to land in a place where you feel centered and connected to yourself and the people in the room. The worst thing you can do is feel like you have to prove something, that they are somehow different or better or smarter or whatever, to be intimidated by them, whatever, right? That there is this separation between you and them. Here's what I believe. You have to feel equal. You have to feel equal and on the same level with the people in the room. That way, you can proceed without fear or anxiety. And for me, that was as hard for me to do as to nail my content and stories. I was always confident in stories. What I needed to do was I needed to work on my self-esteem and my stupid, ridiculous imposter syndrome crap. And when I found the mantra, this is us. This is us. We're all the same. Everything changed for me. Everything shifted. So protocol number 3, find your mantra, your self-talk. Protocol number 4, use music to get you in the right mood. Music is awesome for so many reasons. You can exercise to it. The right song can trigger a good feeling that's related to a positive moment in your life, a positive trigger. Music can make you feel happy, which in my experience is one of the most important emotions you need before you speak. It's impossible to be happy and filled with fear at the same time. So music can distract you from being nervous and take you to your happy place. I mean, watch any sports event, football, soccer, tennis, basketball, whatever. And what do you see all of the athletes doing before they go onto the field? They got headphones on, right? They're listening to music. Now, one of the rituals that I used to get me in a good place was to sing a song while I was doing a mic check. Not an entire song, but I'd stand on the stage or platform. And while the hotel staff was setting the tables, I'd sing the lyrics to a song by Jana Stanfield, a song called If I Were Brave. And the lyrics go like this. What would I do if I knew I could not fail? If I believed, would the winds always fill up my sails? How far would I go? What could I achieve? Trusting the hero in me. Now, I know I sound like crap, but you know what happens? You know what happens when I sang? The hotel staff would stop what they were doing and listen. And sometimes one of them would applaud. Not only did singing help me warm up my voice, unlike today, but it would help me warm up my voice, but the lyrics, what would I do if I knew I could not fail? Those lyrics were so great for putting me in a good frame of mind. So the song is called If I Were Brave by Jana Stanfield. Okay, use music. Protocol number 5 is to arrive in the room where you'll be speaking before everyone else arrives. And this isn't just about doing a mic check or walking on the platform where you'll be speaking. This is about taking ownership of the room. The psychology here is that this room, this boardroom or meeting room or ballroom or convention center, wherever you're speaking, this is your room. It's your room, it's your space, and everyone that comes in to hear you speak is coming into your space. They are your guests. Now, I like to stand at the front of the room and simply say, mine, my space, my room. And then when people start arriving, I would greet them as if they were guests at my party. That's what I would literally think in my head. These are guests at my party. This is my room. They're coming to my party. And the idea that they were coming to my party helped me to shift out of, oh, I have to be a serious speaker. No, we're going to have a good time today. It's going to be a party. I'm going to give you good content, good stories, but it's going to be a party. And I'd get to know a few people and engage them in conversation about change or storytelling or whatever my subject was. But by the time it was my time to speak, I felt so grounded and connected and in charge. So protocol number 5, and this is a good one, own the room. Protocol number 6 is simple. 10 minutes before your start time, go to the bathroom. It sounds stupid, but don't forget to go to the bathroom. It's important to take this time to step away from all the distraction and the people who could say or do something that could throw you off, to take the last few minutes before you speak to go pee. You need to do that. Maybe brush your teeth, swish some mouthwash, whatever. And if you feel like it, look in the mirror, look at your lovely face, your beautiful face, and smile. And remind yourself that you've got this, that you are prepared and ready, and it's going to be great. They're going to love it. Now, one of the things that you'll learn, if you haven't already had it happen, is that there are a lot of things that can affect how well you deliver your speech or your presentation. And most of them have nothing to do with how well you prepare your speech and your slides. You can have your speech down cold. You can do everything right in preparation, and some last minute issue can throw you off balance. You need to be as solid in your pre-speech rituals and protocols as you are with your content and slides, because stuff happens. You can't control the stuff that happens outside of your control, but you can control what happens inside your head and heart and body. You are in charge of you. So take some time to really consider, what do I need to do before I speak? All right, well, that's it for this episode. If you feel that you learned something valuable today, something that you can use that will make your stories stick, stories that make you and your business memorable, marketable, and monetizable, there are 3 things I'd like you to do. First, click on the follow or subscribe button and leave a review wherever you listen. And second, share this podcast with your friends and coworkers, your email list, and on social media. And third, connect with me on LinkedIn. And when you're ready to get serious about taking your stories to the next level, or if you have an important speech, presentation, or TED Talk coming up, or if you want some guidance on how to make the transition to becoming a professional speaker, let's schedule your free 30-minute coaching session where we can get to know each other and see if we're a good fit. And as always, I'd love to hear from you with your questions and comments. Let me know that you're out there listening and learning. You can send an email with your questions, comments, and suggestions to Deborah@DougStevenson.com. That's Deborah, Deborah, @DougStevenson.com. Hey, thanks for listening. Until the next episode, I'm Doug Stevenson.